All right, first up is a laser infrared thermometer here. These used to be pretty expensive, but nowadays you can get a really good one for 20 or 30 bucks. See the little laser sight there? We can convert to Celsius and Fahrenheit on this one, turn the laser on and off if we want. These are really useful for measuring temperatures, like a reality check of your coolant temperature sensor, measuring exhaust temperatures. You can actually measure pre and post catalytic converter temperatures to get some indication of catalytic activity. All kinds of uses for this thing, and very inexpensive. So we'll put a link to a really good one for automotive use in the product description. All right, another thing we need is not so much that this is a ruler, but that it is a true straight edge. It is critically important to have something that you know for a fact is a true straight edge like this, so you can do things like measure warp and cylinder heads and stuff like that. This, of course, typically would be used in conjunction with a feeler gauge set, so that you could, of course, put this up against a flat surface, get on this little divot in my table here, so that doesn't pass through, but that does right there. So we can measure how much of a gap there is and see if that's within a specification. I actually have a few sets of these. This is kind of my good set, so to speak, so I kind of really take care of this one. Sometimes, like when you're working on Honda engines and you're doing a valve lash adjustment, which these are really useful for, I'll use this gauge set, which, as you can see, is a little bit bendy, and this one I'll kind of bend to put into awkward positions and stuff like that, and just keep that separate from my kind of true straight one here. I also kind of like this one because the really thin ones are a different color here, which helps to identify them a little bit easier. Also, this particular one has a spark plug gauge wire measurement tool as well. Here's another measurement tool that you probably wouldn't think of. This is just a sheet of glass about 6 by 8 inches. What I use these for is to check for the trueness of push rods. The push rod will wobble on this perfectly known flat surface if it is not straight. When it does come to spark plug measurement, I typically don't use my feeler gauge set there. Here's a couple of spark plug gauges. This one is a little bit different than some of them you've seen. This one has 8 wire measurement points here for spark plug gap measurement. A lot of them that I've seen out there have only 6, so this one's a little more accurate. But actually, my preferred method for spark plug gap measurement is this tool here, which you can just slide that spark plug along the gap, and it increases in gap as you go. And this will give a very, very exact, precise measurement in either inches or millimeters, as opposed to the wire gauge, where you can see here it jumps from 0.045 to 0.050 inches. If you haven't used this type before, you just start at the skinny end and you slide until you meet resistance here, and you measure right in the middle of the electrode there, and we can see this one is exactly 0.035 inches. So I actually use this one for the measurement, and I use this tool here for the actual gapping. That's why I have 2 of them actually. Here's a couple of tools that I use pretty regularly, actually. These are top dead center finders for your piston. And this will typically be used on most engines to set, for example, the timing belt or timing chain. You need top dead center compression number 1, and we will just thread this into the spark plug hole for that number 1 piston, rotate the crankshaft. As it rotates, you can see it pushes the piston up. You can see there's little measurement marks there like that, and then as the piston comes back down, it will lower, so you can kind of find your exact true top dead center position on the piston. This one here is just a lower profile version. This is pretty useful for things like LS engines, where you're going to run up against the firewall or something if you use a taller tool like this, but the same principle here. Now, keep in mind, not all engines rely on top dead center for piston number 1 for their timing reference. Chrysler Pentastar engine, the V6 there, by the way, is an example that does not set to top dead center on number 1, so make sure you check your service information. But I'll typically use these on a timing job so that I can set my timing marks accurately based on the true top dead center of the reference piston, as opposed to relying on reference marks that may be etched or painted onto the cam or crank sprockets. Using this tool and finding that your true top center is quite a bit off of factory markings for timing can be a pretty good indication of a lax tensioner or stretched belt or chain. This next set of tools here will be useful if you're into engine building applications here. So this first set here, this is a bore gauge here. So what this does, you got this little spring activated thing here, and what you'll do is you'll put this into your cylinder bore or into any bore. See if we can demonstrate this here actually. So you'll loosen up your little thumb screw, which allows the springs to compress in. We'll compress those springs in, fit it into the bore there, lock the spring, and now we can use calipers to accurately measure the diameter of that bore. So obviously these are usually used for measuring the diameter in a cylinder bore, things like that, but it's got other applications as well. One application, of course, for that telescoping gauge set might be, you would think, to measure your bore on your piston rod here. But there is actually a far more accurate way of doing this by actually torquing this around the crankshaft and actually measuring the gap between your piston rod bearings and that crankshaft journal. You can actually measure that gap, which is going to be a very, very specific precision measurement. And you can actually do that while it's bolted on the crankshaft. And that is with this product here. All right, any person who has built an engine before is familiar with this stuff. So this Plastigauge is just a little, let me open this, there we go. A little very, very tiny piece of plastic right there. And what you'll do is you'll lay this on your journal. I don't have a crankshaft, unfortunately, but we can demonstrate this with something else. All right, we'll see if this shows up here, but you would lay your Plastigauge right on your crankshaft journal like that. Bolt your piston on, as usual, to the torque that the manual specifies. And when you do that, of course, you're going to crush that gauge as you tighten it down. Okay, we can demonstrate that with this C-clamp here. All right, now, of course, with your bearing measurement application, you would have a perfectly flat, smooth surface, so this would be a lot easier to read than what this is, but we can see it's definitely thicker than our first marking. It's a little bit thicker than the green marking. It looks like it's about at the white marking right there. We can see that is 0.0015 inches of clearance that we had there. So you compare that with your factory manual and you know that you've got the correct bearing thickness and the correct torque and everything like that to make sure that the engine is within specification. If you're doing cylinder heads, this is an absolute must-have. This is a torque angle gauge. A lot of cylinders, rather than just using torque in 3 steps, typically they'll have torque on the first setting and then they'll have a torque angle so that you move the bolt a certain number of degrees in order to tighten it down rather than to a certain final torque setting. All right, another version of the tool is this one. This is useless, throw that away. This is the way to do your torque angle measurements. All right, to demonstrate this tool, we would have, say, a cylinder head bolt or stud here. We secure our bolt down and we set our torque setting that the manual would suggest. Maybe something like 30 foot-pounds might be typical. All right, then it'll say that we need to torque it to an angle of, let's say, 30 degrees. One way we could do that would be with some paint marks and kind of estimate how much we turn the bolt, maybe try to use a protractor or whatever. Or we can do this accurately with this torque angle gauge. So the torque angle gauge is going to fit between your socket and your ratchet there. Go ahead and put this onto the bolt that we've just torqued. Then we take this clamp here and we can just put it anywhere that we want on the cylinder head. Another bolt, a surface on the cylinder head, doesn't matter. This flexible arm makes it really easy to do that. All right, we've got our dial here. We can set that needle right onto the 0, which is right there. And then as we torque our ratchet, you'll see we move. There's 30 degrees, exactly right there. Okay, and we've shown this in a previous video with its own demonstration, but I have come to really like my V-Can torque wrench. I wouldn't use this for a cylinder head, of course, but they do have versions for it. But this is my go-to electronic torque wrench that we've got a review on previously. One thing to keep in mind, while this one does not have the feature, some really high-end expensive digital torque wrenches now have the ability to have torque angle built in with it. It has kind of a position sensing in there that will allow you to also do torque angle from your digital torque wrench. I do not have one of those, but if any suppliers are watching and want to send me something that'll do it, I'll certainly be happy to give it a test. Okay, another option if you're kind of high tech is to get something like this. This is also a torque angle gauge. It magnetically attaches to the back of your ratchet. Now this would look like the ultimate dream here, but to be honest with you, kind of like with the torque angle gauge that's built into your torque wrench, I kind of don't like these as much as my other setup, particularly if you need a couple of swipes of the ratchet in order to get to your torque angle. These can kind of become a little jittery and jumpy and be a little more inaccurate. But the way this works, pretty simple, is that it just detects the motion of the ratchet. One of my complaints with this one, as cool as it seems, is that as you're moving along, if you have to do a second pass with the ratchet, well, you've stopped the tool now because you're no longer going in that direction, and now you're kind of lost at where you're at. You've got to be able to do your torque in one pass with this tool. Maybe there's some fancier ones out there that are a little smarter than this one. This one's actually a discontinued model anyway, but it's just one of the reasons why I like my manual mechanical torque angle gauge better, because if you have to do multiple ratchet sets, you can still maintain your position of that needle with it. Another very basic must-have device, we covered this in the previous video on measuring belt tension. This is my favorite belt tension gauge. A little meter there, you can actually push this O-ring up, push down on the belt, and measure your tension on the belt very accurately. Fits into really tight places. Definitely a must-have. All right, and my final measuring device that I am going to recommend, I don't even remember how I got it. I think I got it at the auto parts store from one of the Serpentine belt reps, this one's from Dayco, but you can also get this from Gates or whatever. This is actually how you can tell if a Serpentine or drive belt is worn. You're typically used to checking for cracks on the belt and everything. Well, that's not always the most reliable way of doing it. Sometimes the belt wears where the grooves in the belt become more and more worn, and this will help to tell if you need to replace the belt even if you don't see cracks in the belt. Now I've kind of modified this one. This used to have a plastic square here that was 1 inch, because as I think you know, if you have so many cracks per inch on a belt, this would allow you to measure in that window. I just cut that off to make this a little more low profile, but let me show you how this works. Okay, so you see why I cut the little 1-inch window off here so I can make it more clearance here. But you just fit the teeth right there into the grooves on the belt. On this particular belt, it would be easier actually to do it backwards here like this. But I just want you to see the teeth entering the belt grooves there. And basically this should stick in there. It should be pretty firm. If the grooves on this belt are worn down and they're becoming flatter, then the teeth on the measuring tool will allow you to slide the tool with a lot of slop back and forth. Right now, those teeth lock in, they're not sliding back and forth, and that's because this is a fairly new belt in good condition. But if you've got a belt that's squealing and there's no cracks in it, and you're wondering, well, maybe it's a bad tensioner or something, well, before replacing that tensioner, just use your little belt gauge here. And if you see that there's a lot of slop there with it, well, then despite how your belt looks, it's just not the traction and you're getting slip of the belt causing the squeal, and it's not your tensioner after all. Anyway, I've tried to find where some sources are for this thing, but you might want to go to your local auto parts store and see if you can pick up one of these. All right, well, hopefully we showed you some new precision tools you may not have been aware of before, and some things to help make your life not only easier, but also make your work more accurate. Any links to the tools are in the description for this video. Hopefully you enjoyed this. We'll see you next time.